Hello and welcome. It's Sunday, January 18th, and you are tuning in to the Empathy Labs. I'm Selena, your host, and today we're looking at the hook. So, geometry, not personality. If you just joined the lab, welcome. We're currently mapping the architecture of human friction. Last week, we were in the Tangle, that frantic, chaotic noise of process failure. It's messy, but at least it gets us moving. It's still very, very messy though. So for those of you that did your homework and looked at the tangles that you found yourself in, I want to hear from you how it felt to understand the geometry of that friction and how you were able to navigate your way through the tangle to get to the end. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe you got caught in the tangle. Maybe you're still in the tangle. Either way, love to hear from you. So today we're moving into something much more expansive, something a bit more expensive. I like to use expensive because we have been talking about the energy tax. And today we're moving into the circle. So, as I said, I'll be taking you to the shapes of every single conflict so you can kind of start to see them and map them out in your own reality. And so today we're going to be looking at the circle. It's Sunday, it's a new moon, and it's really a good time to be looking at the circle, actually. And in my work at the Empathy Labs, we often distinguish between what we like to call, or what I like to call, noise and structure. The tangle is noise. So if you did your homework, like I mentioned, or if you're joining us for the first time today, your homework this week will be to go back, listen to last week's episode, read last week's article, and see how the tangle is showing up in your life. However, today, as I was saying, the tangle is what we call noise. But the circle, so many people think they're a circle. And when they find out what the circle is, they're like, I don't want to be the circle. I'm not a circle. And if you're a circle, that's okay. But the circle is a structure. We call it the static yantra. It's a closed loop that just goes one, two, one, two. Doesn't change very much because it keeps repeating itself. The players might change, the environment might change, the storyline might change, the type of drama might change, hell, the shoes might change. However, it's a closed loop static yantra that keeps repeating. So I want you to listen really closely. If you and your partner have been having the same argument, if your team is having the same argument for the third time in Q1, you don't have a personality problem. What you do have is geometry challenge. You're trapped in a structural design flaw and it's consuming your kinetic energy, what we like to call your rajas. And we'll get a bit more into that. Or you can go back and read all the other articles where I kind of break that down. And so that design flaw is consuming your kinetic energy. And just to maintain the status quo, you're allowing yourself to run yourself ragged, consuming that kinetic energy. And the circle isn't about confusion. I want you to be really solid in your understanding of this, and I want to be really clear about this. The circle isn't about confusion. The circle is actually more about comfort than anything else. Your comfort and the other person's comfort. And so now I want us to pause, think about that for a second. My comfort, someone else's comfort, but we'll take a moment. So to diagnose a circle, you have to look past the words. You have to look at the three layers of conversation or interaction. I talked about them last week, and I'll touch them again right now. You have the social layer. So this is the performance. How are you? How was your weekend? How are you doing? The polite mask. You have the practical layer. This is logistics. Who did what? Who forgot what? What didn't get done? And then we have the emotional layer. This is the frequency, the unmet needs, the historical triggers, the cliches, as I've been talking about. And in the circle, the argument almost always presents as practical. For example, why is this report late? Or why are the dishes still there? Why isn't the vacuum put away? This whole situation is fueled by emotion. And we stay in the loop because we're trying to solve a 3-level problem, the 2-level tool. It's like trying to fix a radio frequency with a hammer. You're just going at it, going at it. And if people are still listening to radio or regular radios, you got to keep messing with the knob until the show comes in clear. You won't necessarily take a hammer to the whole thing to kind of get it going. So I want you to take a moment and think about that. The social layer, the practical layer, and the emotional layers. And I want you to just take a moment and see if you can, even just within the last hour or two, if you've been having that circle conversation. It doesn't have to be today. It could have been yesterday. It could have been the day before. Hell, it could have been last week. Or you might be thinking about having that circle conversation with someone tomorrow because you're still holding on to what happened on Thursday. However, I want to say that holding on to things and this repetition of the circle comes with a really, really heavy energy tax. And thinking about this, I want you to think about the last time you realized you were 10 minutes into a conversation you've already had 50 times. And where in your body did you feel it? Usually, what we found at the lab is that most folks feel it in their throat or they feel it in their chest. It's like a tightness, something that we call the somatic clench. The words you've already decided aren't worth saying because you know the exact script of the response. In our work, we map this to abinatia, the fear of loss. And it's not just the fear of losing the relationship, it's your fear or our collective fears of losing our place in the rhythm. If you aren't the only one who's always right and they aren't the only one who's always wrong, then who are you both really? And so we perpetuate the circle because we rather be comfortable and kind of break out of it and see where we can be a bit more kind to ourselves and our partners and our teammates and our work colleagues and whoever we come into contact with on a regular basics. See, new moon messing with me, a regular basis where we could be entangling ourselves in the circle. So I know that was kind of a bit of a downer. You're kind of like, oh man, Selena, I thought you were going to come with something really uplifting and enlightening. And you know what? Sometimes enlightenment is heavy. Sometimes you have to carry the heavy thing for a moment in order to be able to put it down and say, hey, that was really heavy. And I learned something. I don't want to pick that up again anytime soon. So maybe I've learned it, I've embodied it, and now I'm going to teach it to somebody else. Maybe my partner, maybe my kids. Really important if you teach your kids. Really, really important. Now, most people, going back to what we were talking about before, see, I gave you a moment of levity, but most people would rather pay the energy tax for a painful known loop, as I was just saying. So we'd rather do it because we know it. It's comfortable. We know the response. We know the reaction. We know it's going to happen. Then face the void of a new identity. If we were to step out and do something different, if you were to erode your boundary just because, not because you want the other person to do it too, but just to see what would happen, right? That presents a new identity. When we feel that somatic clench, when we want to fall back into what we've always done or known before or continue riding the groove of the circle, the body clenches, and it's the way of rejecting the void of a new identity. We cling to the role of those, I'm always right. And as I said, we often prefer something we know over an unknown piece. And what I'm asking us to do is during this time this week, kind of maybe you don't want to step into the unknown piece, and that's okay. It's totally fine. You don't have to. You don't have to do a damn thing, I'm saying. Just listen to me and be like, Ma, this girl has a lot of ideas, but she's nuts. You're listening. I just want you to play with it in your mind and see where you can recognize these patterns in others that might make you feel a bit more comfortable. And so, what I've noticed in chats and circles happens in chats, everyone's in the group chat. I know we're fighting for our lives out here in group chats. At least I am. In our WhatsApp, in our Slacks, in our Teams. Think for a minute. Have you ever just watched a thread that just circles like the same three people making the same 4 points over and over? It's a digital circle. So you know what a physical circle is. I've explained how circles come up in our conversations. But when we're doing the digital things, because we're all connected to our digital things, you're probably like, well, how does this work in a chat? As I just said, we're fighting for our lives. And it's always the same three people or four people or individuals who are making those same 4 points or 5 points over and over. And everything kind of always goes back to those points. We can never get off that groove. The record is just, it's skipping at this point. People think that they're communicating, but they aren't. They're basically just keeping the rhythm. And this week, you know what? Because I've taken a lot of your time, you've given me about 10 minutes of your listening time. I'm not asking you to fix anything, folks. I'm just asking you to hear the music. I'm asking you to hear the circles, see the tangles, feel those vibrations this week. Are you arguing about logistics, or are you just stuck in the emotional rhythm? And in tomorrow's lab report, I'll give you the diagnostic blueprint to audit these layers for yourself. We're staying in the diagnostic loop for now. The redesign, well, the redesign will keep that for later. As always, I'm Selena Isles. I've been your host here at the Empathy Labs. We'll see you next week. Until then, stay anchored.